It's the Tirconaill Tribune Wednesday afternoon podcast with me, John Mackett here. And this week we welcome Declan Kerr for the first time to our weekly podcast. Declan, nice to see you again.
Thanks, John. I'm looking forward to it.
We have a very varied paper and a very busy paper this week. We're just looking, first of all, I'm just going to look at this picture of the young fellas diving off the Harry Blaney Bridge. We've had very serious concerns expressed to us by experienced divers who see this as an accident waiting to happen. Somebody has snapped people jumping off, teenagers possibly jumping off the Harry Blaney Bridge, and we're told that a number of them have participated in this, and we're told that the tide at low ebb has an estimated drop of 72 feet. Families living in the vicinity of the bridge have also expressed their shock that this is going on, and they've appealed for it to stop, because they also feel that the waters around the bridge here, whilst it's an absolutely beautiful spot, it's not fit for this type of purpose. So if you're at that kind of carry on out there as young people, you're being advised to desist from that for your own good.
It's a highly dangerous.
It's a highly dangerous exercise, and it's one that's not to be encouraged. By all means, it has to be discouraged. But apart from that, Declan, we're staying on the front page. We'll go back to these Glenvar arson attacks.
Yes, John, you had it was your main front page story last week, and this week we're reporting that Francie Logue, a member of the Logue family from Carroria there in Glenvar, is now offering a €1,000 award for information in relation to that second malicious attack on their property in the last 9 months, of course. That was Tuesday week past that the 75 bales were burned. Is that right, John?
That's right, and this follows on. You see, there's what's more serious with this. This is the second sinister attack that this family has endured in the past 9 months. Back early October last year, just at 2:30 in the morning, a vehicle parked outside the front door was set alight, obviously with an accelerant, because it literally went up in flames, and there were 2 explosions as it did so, causing quite a bit of damage around the house. The front door was damaged, the soffit, PVC soffit was warped and all that kind of thing. And Gardaí were appealing for help. They're still appealing for help at Milford, 9153060. But so far there has been nobody has come forward with the kind of information that might substantiate bringing those who are perpetrating the crimes to justice. Now, Glenvar is a very small, remote community sitting up there high above Loch Swilly. Carroria, where the Logues live, is right up at the top of the glen, as we call it, looking across the Swilly, and where this latest attack took place in a hayfield. It's 2 miles away, but it's a very, very small, fragile community as well, in that there are less than 60 residential homes there, and there's less than 130 people there. So if there's anybody out there, the Gardaí, and indeed ourselves here in the Tribune, because we speak for the well-being of the entire community in the Glen, that if there's anybody has a shred of evidence or suspicion, they should talk to the Gardaí in confidence. And as I say, the Gardaí in Milford can be contacted at 07491 53060, and we hope there will be some movement on that in the best interest of peace and harmony, and indeed for the well-being of the whole family.
And I suppose the Logue family, this is an extra step just in terms of offering this award, so hopefully there will be some.
It's a substantial award, yeah. And let us see just how that plays out, but let's get that out there loud and clear, that the family is now moved to offer this award in the hope that somebody with something it might bring to life a sense of, did we see something, or should we have reported something that was suspicious? But from that, we're moving on to an issue that's very much in the headlines again today. This is the editorial, in fact this was written some days ago. Paddy Dover, the voice of hope in the Mica crisis, in our stand first, simply reads, more than any politician, Paddy Dover is the man that has offered many heartbroken families what they need very urgently, hope. He has also given many who have faced the darkest days and many years a prospect that at long last their damaged homes can be repaired, putting an end to their trauma and in many cases the depression they've been forced into through neglect and government failure. This is moving very, very slowly. It's probably moving in the wrong direction because other members of the group appointed to examine the scheme under the guidance of the Housing Minister, Dara O'Brien, numbers of the Mayo group have withdrawn again this morning. So to all intents and purposes, it's all very, very negative, and the kind of hope and prospects engendered by the huge protest in the middle of June in Dublin has now dissipated because people are seeing that there's going to be no quick fix solution.
Yeah,
and indeed it may well be on the route of this current government to deliver it.
And Paddy Dever himself has stepped away last week from he was on that committee in Dublin.
Well, Paddy has given a new urgency, a new vibrancy, and as I say, he has given people who have lived with this problem for the past 10 or 12 years, he has given them this vital component of life. It's called hope. Yeah. There was a belief that with the urgency and the huge thrust of support for that protest, that finally politicians and the government would sit up, would listen, and would come to a conclusion of getting the outline of an agreement put on the table. So far, that hasn't happened, and the fact that some of the main players are no longer part of the group tells its own story, because now we're entering into the bank holiday weekend. We're entering into a phase of total holiday season right into September, and we don't expect that much is going to happen. Now, unfortunately, people deserve better than this. They've always deserved better than this, because the issue in Inishowen has been there for a long, long time, probably as far back as 20 years ago. Now, where it goes from here, it doesn't look very, very promising, unfortunately.
They're talking now about going back to Dublin for another protest in September, John. It looks like a lot of them are walking away from this these negotiations, which are at a snail's pace, and talking now about that actually not going on to the end of September, those discussions. So there is frustration, a lot of frustration there.
It's more than frustration, because, people have suffered in silence in the forlorn hope that the political process would look at their case and do something about it. And it took people with the dynamic approach of Paddy Dever to give them that renewed hope. Now, Paddy Dever was on radio this morning, where he said that with the deadline now out to the middle of September, there wouldn't be any protest prior to that. And the hope is, and it is a forlorn hope, that something may happen that will give people some more confidence, and indeed that will see the Taoiseach come into this thing directly, because I think it's only the Taoiseach that can actually deal with it. We're now going to look back to you, Declan. Volunteer awards for Ben and Willie. That is your page at the moment.
Yeah, that's just very deserved volunteer awards for Ben McFadden and Willie Doherty. Ben is from Ards in Creesla, and Willie is from Umla in Kerrygarrett, and they both received volunteer awards from the Donegal Volunteers Centre on Friday. And there's a piece here in the paper and with pictures with the two, Ben and Willie, with their awards. Ben was nominated by the Creesla Community Association for his quiet work over the years and diligently for the betterment of the community over those years. He's the chairman of the Creesla Community Association, and among many projects that he has been involved in include the Christmas lights, Tidy Towns, the St. Patrick's Day Parade, as well as being an entertainer and history tour guide. Willie has received his award for his work over the last number of years with the MS Donegal branch.
Willie's a real legend in his own lifetime.
Yeah, and he's done
great character.
He's done Trojan work for charity over that time, and his citation says that for almost 40 years he's been a fundraiser for the charity, and he organises the church gate collections in 12 parishes and gathered many thousands of euros in green fees and sponsorships from the annual golf tournaments at Balbafay and Stranraer Golf Course.
Of course, Ben has been so active all his life in so many voluntary projects, and that Owen Carrow memorial stone, which was unveiled just a couple of weeks back.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it owes much of its origin to Ben's hard work and his sheer dedication.
Yeah, two men that richly deserve those awards.
And from that we're going on to something very different. We're going back 20 years ago and we're reporting Ramelton's Nightmare on Elm Street. And for those of you who don't remember Nightmare on Elm Street, just listen a minute. Ramelton had his own share of environmental woes in recent years, and that pattern continued over the weekend. As readers of these pages will know only too well, the town's streets are generally in a woefully poor state. It's almost too embarrassing to write about it, but on Friday the council carried out some repairs. It was a wonderful step in the right direction, you might think. It was not a massive multi-million tuppence halfpenny contract. I don't know who actually wrote this, but it was really important and reassuring for Ramelton. It was a tire-darning operation. It was carried out along Church Street and down the Castle Street. But then, lo and behold, disaster struck. Floods of water came in that night and they washed the water down into the linen and along it, but the tire went as well. And the tire ran down the streets onto the pavement. People carried it in their footwear into their homes. And that's where we say it was like Nightmare on Elm Street. And early on Saturday morning, council employees spread sand to prevent any further damage. But for many householders it was already far too late, and damage to their properties were extensive. It was just terrible, said one resident. If the council stays away, nothing gets done, but when they come here and fix the streets, we don't really expect to see the tire running all over the town. Of course, I must point out that was long before Ian McGarvey became a councillor.
Wouldn't have happened if Ian was
there. It wouldn't have happened if Ian was there. He'd have been down sorting it out himself. Anyway, we will move on a little bit to our front lead story all over the place today, even in the national media. And looking out at us is the former curate of Fannet in the 1970s, Fatherkhan Cunningham, now long since defrocked, and today was sentenced to 15-month imprisonment. The Fannet sisters waive their privacy to name the sex abuser. And this is a very graphic and a very sad story. The Martin sisters from Fannet have waived their right to privacy to name the former Catholic curate Fatherkhan Cunningham as the man that sexually abused them when he served in Fannavolty in the 1970s. The girls were still not teenagers when the abuses began, and they first raised their concerns with Bishop Seamus Hegarty in 1994. Now, Cunningham is 86 years of age, a frail old man. He was jailed for 15 months for the horrific sexual abuse of the two sisters, and he pleaded guilty to 8 counts of indecent assaults between 1971 and 1975. In passing sentence, Judge John Aylmer said the abuse had been an appalling impact on the lives of the victims, Margaret and Paula Martin. The women were aged between 11 and 13 and 9 and 12 years respectively at the time, and significantly they have appealed to any other victims to come forward. I don't know how many times we have revisited these issues over the last 25 years. They're all of a similar nature. They're horrific, they're shocking, and it's always, in the main, people like the Martins who finally pick up the courage after almost 50 years. You can only but kind of imagine the trauma, the tragedies that they have been through, and the darkest of dark days and nights.
And you, John, at the beginning of 2020, done an extensive, wide-ranging interview with the two.
We did indeed, and
sisters.
I think they did acknowledge that. Yeah, probably the Tribune was the first one that gave credence to their story, and that after spending 5 or 6 hours with them down in their homes on the Sunday before the New Year, that was in 1919, and the story appeared basically as they had given it to me. And it was the first time that they suddenly realised that somebody actually believed them. Somebody in the media that took the courage to put it out there into the public domain. It's something that isn't generally done, but we had no hesitation whatsoever in doing it. Such was the authenticity, and you could read into their faces the sense of telling the truth. They were so genuine, so sincere, but you could see the lines that showed the hurt and the suffering that they abused. Now, Fatherkhan, as I say, was a revered curate in Fannet and in many other parishes. He finally ended up in Falcara in 2002, and from that until they appeared in court again, I think it was 2018. nobody knew or heard anything about him except that he just was in ill health. But he was, back in his days, he was one of the most respected priests in this diocese. And then I suppose it came to a head when the Ryan Commission in 2002 reported Gardaí received files on allegations against clergy, including that of the two women. The women met with the then Bishop of Rafo, Dr. Philip Boyce, who gave them the opportunity to address their issues. And amongst these was the women's demands that he have no further access to children. This again is covered in great detail right across the front page and is continued inside again today. Now, he admitted his guilt as far back as 2002, and for the best part of 20 years the case has been hanging over him. This was his solicitor in court stating that this day he knew that this day would come, and he suggested that this should be a militating factor, and I presume the judge would have looked at that favourably. But it brings an end to, it closes that particular page in this sorrowful, shocking chapter of clerical sex abuse, not only in this country but here in this diocese. And you just wonder, reading that, is that the end of it? Because in the aftermath, when we printed that story, Declan, a year last January, the amount of contact that we had from anonymous sources as late as 4 o'clock in the morning, quite unbelievable and quite horrendous. And my only advice to them was, given that I already worked in psychological services for over 20 years, was to pick up the courage, talk to a counsellor. We suggested numbers to them, and if the occasion demanded or allowed them, that they should talk to the Gardaí. That appeal is still going out there because, you know, the era of clerical sex abuse continues to haunt this diocese and will continue to haunt it until every last victim has the courage to come forward and has their names cleared, as the Martin sisters have done today. And I just want to wish them well. I know them very, very well indeed. In fact, they're second cousins on my own. But I want to wish them, their mother, Catty, and the rest of the family circle, all the very best for the future.
Yeah, and it's been a long and painful journey.
It's been a frightening journey, and it's one that no family should be subjected to, especially by a priest. Now, there's under no circumstances that anyone should be subjected to sex abuse, but where you have a priest involved, families entrust their children into the care of that priest, and you cannot but miss that point, that this has been a grievous breach of trust. And let us hope that it gives the Martin sisters some semblance of justice having been seen to be done. And with that, Declan, thanks for being with us this afternoon, and we'll talk soon again.